Up a state, and I'm bringing to you live my boys Alec and Nate, Tequila Ty, Jay, Nelly, and Zillin in the building. So kick it back, pour the drink. We chillin' because I'm boozing and betting and balling like I'm 2-6 in the blue kicks. Watch me move quick. Yeah, this the blueprint. So who's getting involved? Welcome into the show. This is Booze, Bets, and Ball, baby.
Well, I didn't think we'd be doing an episode this week, but we are. After Nate and I spent a good 15 minutes talking about how it was maybe beneficial for Penn State to not make the Big Ten championship game, we're going to sit here and talk about the Big Ten championship game because as 21-point favorites, Ohio State loses at home to Michigan, putting up 10 points. Shocking performance. And then obviously Penn State steamrolled Maryland 44-7, playing until the final buzzer, as Mike Loxley pointed out. We're not going to talk too much about that game because it's pointless in the grand scheme of things now. But Nelly, Nate, and I sat here and said how maybe we don't even want to play in this game. But you're gonna tell us why this is all good now.
Well, dude, it was funny because I think everybody didn't want us to play in this game, and when we were watching it, right when it turned on, I was like, all right, I want Ohio State to win. But once Michigan started creeping around, playing with them, everybody in my house is getting hyped. Like the whole point of the season is you want to make the Big Ten championship, even if once again we needed someone else to lose for us to make it. But I mean, let's be we're in this game. We're in the playoff 100%. It's a win-win situation. You win this game, we're probably number one. Maybe not mattering Texas. They might be number one, but either one or two with the Big Ten championship. That's the whole reason why you play the season. Even if we don't want to as fans, as the athletes and the coaches, the whole reason they play is to win that championship. So, I mean, it's a big opportunity. I mean, it does possibly stink for us as fans if we do win because we don't get a home playoff game. But, I mean, you can't be upset with – I won't be upset with the championship anymore. I mean, you beat the number one team. What are you going to – you can't be upset. If we go out there and beat Oregon, that shuts up everybody about how we can't win a big game. If you look at it that way, everybody hates Franklin because he can't win a big game. If he beats the number one team, the only undefeated team, what are you going to say? So I think it's a good chance to shut up all the narratives. And if you lose, everybody's going to be like, same old, same old. So it's really a win-win in my eyes. But what I got to say with that.
Nelly, I'm coming around. I agree with you now. I do think that – okay, no, I don't think anybody would have been mad if we won the championship. Right. You're kind of I was last week just a little bit nervous about it because you don't get the rest that you would have wanted the team to have, right? And especially if they're a little bit banged up and stuff. But right, if you do win, then you get 3 weeks off because then the quarterfinal games aren't until New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. So if you can manage to win, it does a hell of a lot for the program. Like you're saying, it shuts everybody up. And then you get that rest anyway. So, one more game against a team that's actually really evenly matched with Penn State based on stats. And I don't know how much we want to talk about that or throughout this time, but, I think people expect that Oregon is the dominant team, but that's just not the case. This can be a very, very good matchup for Penn State.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see neutral fields. I know the ESPN matchup predictor likes Penn State. Everyone and their mother has tweeted that picture in the past 2 days. I saw a thing. Part of that is actually that takes into account home field and travel. So Penn State is traveling 1,000 less miles for that game than Oregon is, which I think is why it's actually favored towards Penn State. Has nothing to really do with on the field type stuff. But yeah, Oregon, the last undefeated in college football, which usually we get 1 or 2 come playoff time. So if Penn State wins this game, we're going to go into a 12-team playoff with no undefeated teams, which I don't think that's ever happened in the history of the 4-team playoff. I think someone was always undefeated. There might have been 1 year where everyone had at least one, but it's just not common that there's not undefeated teams in college football, which I think we complain about the transfer portal and stuff and NIL, but it's actually dispersing the talent a little more evenly. And the fact that nobody has been dominant this year and kind of have ran away with it points to that. So I, give some credit there to the things that people say are ruining college football. In a way, it's also making it a little more competitive. But Oregon is a team that has benefited from both those things because probably there's not many teams that have better NIL than them, and they do very well in the transfer portal. And their starting quarterback, Dylan Gabriel, is a transfer guy, 6th year on his 3rd school. I know a couple of their defensive tackles, I think, are transfers too. So they've brought guys in. Their number 1 receiver is a transfer from Texas A&M, I'm pretty sure. So they've had guys, coming from all over the country pretty much to Dan Lanning's squad. And they're interesting because Dan Lanning's an SEC guy. They were in the Pac-12, and now they're in the Big Ten. So they're a combo of pretty much everything. So they're a unique team, and now Penn State has to deal with them. I mean, Ohio State didn't deal with them, lost by a point out in Eugene. Penn State gets them on a neutral field. So, we'll see.
Yeah, I was just looking at my TV about like the rankings.
I could hear it.
Yeah, no, I had to go turn it down real quick because I definitely could tell that it was loud. But the one thing I do have against it is like SMU. Like it should be the top 4 teams, I think, not conference champions, because SMU and Boise State just shouldn't get a bye. Sorry, like even if they do win the conference, like that, they're just not a top 4 team, so they shouldn't be getting a bye. That's like my only thing about this. And everybody was talking about like if you make a 12 team format, like it would be more upsets and everything. But now we're giving Bama a chance to get in, and possibly Clemson, possibly all the same teams that usually get in, even on their down year.
Yeah.
So that kind of does suck because those teams can turn it up in the playoffs for all we know. Bama could go back to being Bama and just dominate. They have the players and the talent to be good. So, I mean, it's not like against it, but we'll see. I mean, this weekend, like you were saying about the ESPN FPI thing, that's so dumb. Like, people keep posting. Like, I don't know who goes off of that ever. I mean, we're only plus 3.5 point favorites. I think like plus 142 or 160 now. I don't know. It might have went up a little bit. But, I mean, they definitely think we have a chance here, and I think we do too. I mean, Ohio State realistically should have won if Will Howard just went down
1/2 second earlier, and they would have won that game.
They still could have missed the field goal, of course, but they could have had at least a chance to win the game. So, I mean, we could be talking totally different about this team. They've had close games against Idaho. Everyone wants to talk about a Bowling Green game. They had it versus Idaho. Bowling Green's look better than them. They almost lost to Boise State. They played 10 times worse at Wisconsin than we did with a backup quarterback coming in. Mm-hmm. Like, this team is definitely beatable. I'm not saying we're going to, but people are already writing us off. Like, Oregon's this, like, dominant, insane team. But they're barely winning games just like us, but we're the only team that gets punished for it.
Yeah, somebody, let's say Penn State Harvey at PGH Joker tweeted all the common games that we have. So UCLA, Ohio State, Purdue, Illinois, Maryland, Wisconsin, Washington. The average scores of those games are Penn State 31-10, Oregon 34-15, and the average margin is Penn State plus 21 and Oregon plus 19. So in common opponents, it kind of works itself out that we are very similar. So this is, again, and if you look at kind of stat for stat, there's one that we're a huge outlier, and that's our third down defense. Shocker. We're in like the hundreds of the country, but everything else, like, we're within a couple plus or minus Oregon in virtually every stat. And I think they have a little better run game than us. Somehow we have a better pass game than them, or vice versa too. So this is going to be super close, and you can't write them off. And like you said, Nelly, they struggled at Wisconsin. Wisconsin had a chance at the end there. They did kill Michigan, right? So that, I think there's a lot to that, and obviously they beat Ohio State. So they get a lot more kudos for the big games than we do, but on average, it's very, very close.
Yeah, I mean, looking at them, the thing is Penn State rotates at running back a little more. So they have Jordan James, who put up over 1,100 yards and 13 touchdowns. Obviously, if you combine Katron Allen and Nick Singleton, they're over that as well. I think their next leading rushers at 450. Yeah. So they rely more on one guy. Penn State relies on two. Receiver, I mean, they rely on the receivers. Evan Stewart, 48 catches, 613 yards, 5 touchdowns. And there was one other. Yeah, Tez Johnson, 67 for 685 and 9 touchdowns. And then they have a couple tight ends in there too. Terrence Ferguson, 35 catches, 490 yards, 2 touchdowns. So they can spread out a little more, I think, with the passing game because Penn State's receivers are obviously a problem. Obviously, Penn State has the overall better, maybe best pass catcher in this game in Tyler Warren. I think it's fair to say Oregon's definitely deeper at the pass catcher position, but Penn State relying on 2 running backs versus Oregon on 1, plus Penn State bringing in Bo Pribula to do some Wildcat stuff, I think gives them some different looks. So I think Oregon might be deeper on offense, but I think Penn State can give you more looks that you have to prepare for.
Well, yeah, I agree. Obviously, I mean, we have Warren that can play quarterback and Bo. The one thing I will talk about with the running back, I really hope we see Singleton 10 times more than Allen this week, unless we're at the goal line situation or 3rd and 1 type.
Well, that didn't really work well at the Ohio State game. But.
Well, because okay.
Just say Warren. Ty Warren should be
the those types of situations, the only time I want to see Singleton looks as healthy as he's ever looked this season, and he's that burst on the kickoff and last week he was just playing much better. Other than did he fumble the first play or was that?
Yeah, it was him.
Other than that, he looked a lot better, and this is a big game for him to show up. We need him to show up, like you said. Wide receivers aren't there. We need Wallace to be healthy. Like he needs to play this game. Fleming and Clifford have not shown anything. Warren is there, but I mean, if you're Oregon, you may as well just double him, even if you still might not be able to stop him, but it's better than anything else you can do and make our wide receivers make plays, which we saw in Ohio State. Even Harrison Wallace didn't make a crucial play that we needed that turned into interception in the end zone. So, I mean, it's going to come down to those types of plays. Our defense can cover very well. I mean, A.J. Harris is going to have a pretty good matchup with either Tez or Evan Stewart. They're very talented there. I mean, and the other thing we need to probably talk about a little bit is that Dylan Gabriel is going to be probably one of our biggest run threats that we've had at quarterback. He definitely runs the ball a lot, and we're going to have a spy on him because he will go for 20, 30 yards if he has the field to do it. I mean, I'm not worried about our defense. I think they can cover, and we saw Carter's been lights out. I mean, I think in the beginning of the season, he didn't play great, which maybe hasn't given him as much recognition as he should have had this season. I mean, he won the Big Ten Player of the Year, but you really don't hear much about him other than Big Ten Network. So, like, I think this is a big spot for him to show up because our D-line, our D tackles are very thin recently now. We're going to need him to put pressure, apply pressure, and we'll see. I mean, do we think Wiley will be back for this week possibly? I saw he was practicing, but he keeps being out on the sheet before the game. He would be a big piece to have back at linebacker. So, I mean, we'll see, though. Great week.
The thing about Gabriel, I agree with too, that he's got 175 rushing yards for the year, which, for a quarterback nowadays is pretty good. I wonder, was it Altmaier? I think we were a little worried about him rushing early on again.
Yeah,
right?
a little bit.
And they had some Carter spying him a little bit, so they know how to defend that.
Yeah.
So I think Dylan Gabriel is way better than Garrett Altmaier, but I think that they can handle that. I do worry about the defensive line depth now with a couple of the tackles going down. One point you just made about Carter winning the Defensive Player of the Year in the Big Ten. Zane Durant got no love on any of the 3 teams, which just seems like a pretty big snub. So I would expect him to come out ready to take every snap and kill somebody, which would be great. He's been doing amazingly well all year. I really like him. Probably my favorite player. But but they have to be able to rotate some. So I was backwards before. This is actually pretty shocking. So we have 300-ish more rushing yards than they do. They have 300 more passing yards than we do. On a total game-by-game basis, we are number 2. Penn State's number 2 in the Big Ten. They're number 1 in total yards per game, and they're separated by 5 yards. We have 0.2 more yards per play than them. But it's crazy how close these teams are. And I think it is going to be a matter of which defense can shut down the strength of the other side. Like Nelly, you were talking about with Nick Singleton, if he is the lead back this week and there is no sense to hold him back and really kind of give him the lion's share of the work, if he's like 2 years ago Rose Bowl Nick Singleton, or started this year Nick Singleton, I think they will struggle to slow him down, and he will break something, get him the ball in space, and he's been really electric the last couple of weeks, and that should continue.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest concern with that is offensive line play. I think this is the best D-line Penn State's going to play this year. The Ohio State guys like Sawyer, JTT, Williams, the other McDonald, is that the other DT they have? Those guys are highly rated and stuff, but they don't put up the type of stats that these guys on Oregon does. I mean, they had a guy, DJU's younger brother, actually led the Big Ten in sacks this year with 10.5, with 13 tackles for loss. Jordan Birch, who honestly is probably their best defensive player, 8.5 sacks, and I think 11 tackles for loss. I mean, they got guys on the defensive line, and just without Anthony Donko, we know the interior of Penn State's line has struggled at times, and I think that's partially been Katron Allen's problem, because Katron Allen is the inside kind of run guy, the guy between the tackles, whereas Singleton is just bounce everything outside, uses speed. I think that's kind of why Katron struggled and Singleton hasn't, is because the interior of the line hasn't been great.
Yeah.
So that's somewhat of a concern there, because I do think it's the best defense they'll face.
They're 7th, and I'm not saying that this is whatever, but like they are 7th in the conference in average yards per rush allowed at 3.6. That is, I'm sorry, hold on, let me sort that. They are 8th in the conference at 3.6. So that is like dead average. Penn State is 3.1. The best in the conference is Indiana at 2.5. So like they give up some yards on the ground, 112 yards a game. So that's again 6th in the conference. Like they can be run on. I get it. They do get a lot of tackles for loss. They do get a lot of sacks. But they can be run on, I think. And yeah, having Donka go out doesn't help this case, but I don't know. Look at getting Singleton in space, and even if it's not a formal run play on screens and things, he can do something, I hope, this week.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down, honestly, just can we make plays? I mean, we know our defense is going to be there. They were there against Ohio State. They're going to be there this week. They always show up. It's going to be down to our offense again. Can they make crucial plays when you're in the red zone? Can you convert a touchdown? Because field goals aren't going to win. Once again, you can't get field goals against Ohio State or Oregon. You can't do it against Oregon. You need touchdowns. They can score easily. Even though our defense is great, they can put a drive easily together. They're going to put up points at some point. So it's going to come down. Can our guys make the plays to win this game? Because our defense will keep us there. But at a point, the defense can't win you the game. We saw that against Ohio State. Not a single offensive touchdown. A defensive touchdown kept us in that game. Really? So it's going to be that. Can our offense do something not named Warren if they shut him down and he's not open in the crucial spot? So I hope someone steps up or decides to step up, because we need it.
I would be curious. I think somebody in the group chat talked about Oregon against tight end receiving, and I don't remember the detail exactly, but I feel like that is a vulnerability for them.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Yeah, I have to look that up. But kind of what you were going off of someone else having to step up, it doesn't help that Trey Wallace all of a sudden is hurt.
Yeah.
Missed the Maryland game. Penn State's not great at receiver, but he was the leading receiver. I think, 35 catches, almost 600 yards. So, there wasn't much there this season, but Wallace was the one constant. There were a couple games where Amari Evans went off, a couple games where Liam Clifford went off, a couple games where Julian Fleming made some big plays, but the one constant at the position, if you want to call 35 catches a constant, which the fact I am is pretty sad. But he was the constant. So not having him definitely hurts. I think he is, to an extent, Aller's security blanket. There's a lot of times on third down when teams are doubling Warren, Wallace was the guy that Aller looked at. So, it didn't come up in the Maryland game just because the score got out of hand so quick with how well the defense played after the first drive. So it didn't look like an issue, but is that an issue now when you're going to be playing a much closer game and third down conversions are going to be a lot more important? Because Penn State honestly wasn't even that great on third down against Maryland. They were very good on fourth down, which covered up for it. But a lot of it was just because it was 1 yard to go, and 6'5" Drew Aller was getting pushed from behind by 6'4" Tyler Warren. And, Maryland's not exactly the best on the defensive line. Obviously, totally different story with Oregon. So, you got to get those yards in this game. You got to be able to get the first downs instead of the 4th and 1s, because they're not as convertible against Oregon as they would be Maryland.
Yeah. I don't know. Omari Evans has 18 catches on the year, but he did not drop any last week, right? And he's been securing the ball a little bit better the last couple of weeks, and I do think that's good for him, because he, on those possession type routes, the beginning of the year, he had, I feel like, a few drops. At least my memory tells me that he had a few drops, and if he's cleaned that up, maybe he can be a little bit more of the go-to guy. But 18 for him, 17 for Clifford, and 14 for Fleming on the year after Wallace. So yeah, there is a big drop off, and one of those guys has to do something this week if Trey Wallace is not there. But he was listed as questionable going into the game. So my hope is that they just held him out for caution, but not for something really serious.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I think just because it was Maryland, he gets held out either way. Yeah. But knowing that, and all of a sudden, I think they knew. Players on the team said they didn't know that they were going to the Big Ten championship until after their game. I don't buy that. But I have a good feeling they were pretty much like, okay, let's rest Wallace this week because we do have a game to play next week now. I'm hoping that's what went into that. I think either way would have got rested just because it's like, okay, get it to next week off before we host a playoff game. But either way, I'm just hoping he's back this week. And if they hold him out and they lose, at least he better be good to go for the home playoff game. Penn State came in at 3 in these rankings, so technically the 5 seed, which is the highest seed you could get without having a bye. Now, we're not sure how much the drop-off is going to be if they lose. I think they're still guaranteed a home game. And I think if they know they're still guaranteed a home game, they're going to play a lot more aggressive in this Big Ten championship game and give Oregon a lot to deal with because there is not as much for them to lose. I mean, look, I don't think on Saturday morning anyone involved with this program was ready to think about Oregon a week from now. The fact that Ohio State lost, I think, blindsided everyone. So now that they kind of find themselves in this position by accident, if they know that their floor for losing this game is maybe the 6 or the 7 seed, I think you're going to see them be very aggressive in this game. Maybe, fake some punts, go for some 4th downs, just because to them, the ceiling is maybe the 1 seed and a bye, and the floor is, okay, we come back in 2 weeks and host the Southern team at home, So I think that makes them more dangerous in this game than under normal circumstances, just because there's not as much to lose and they can kind of go for it in a sense.
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead now.
You want me to go?
Yeah, please.
All right, I was just gonna say. I mean, I agree. Like, if it's the 50, it's 4th and 1. I don't know why we don't push. I mean, even if they got D-line, Drew's 6'5", like 240, whatever, with Tyler Warren and Singleton in back, they're pushing him. There's no reason why we can't get a yard. And like I said in the beginning, we have nothing to lose and everything to prove. We've been told we can't beat a big team. Franklin's been told that. I don't know why you don't pull out every trick you have in the book to beat this team. I mean, if you win, like you said, possible number 1 seed, and I mean, first playoff, number 1 seed, can't complain with a bye. I mean, that'd be huge momentum for our team. That would give them the confidence they need to be like, all right, we can beat anyone. We just beat the number 1 team who beat Ohio State, who honestly we should have beat if we can convert a freaking red zone trip. So, I mean, we have nothing to lose. And like you said, if we need Trey to play, but like Amari Evans has made plays. Fleming made, I guess, 2 plays that matter the most. Maybe the 2 biggest plays of the season against USC. So, I mean, they've shown up, but can they be consistent in a big game against Oregon? I don't know how their DBs honestly are. I haven't looked into it that much. I know their front seven is very good. I know Ohio State had a lot better DBs probably better than Oregon. I don't know, but because they kind of got torched first, Oregon, so I guess that's kind of like it's there. So, but I guess we'll see. But I mean, if Trey doesn't play, it's kind of like our run game has to be there because if I'm Oregon, I'm putting however many people I need on Warren because he's always been our offense, and if our second guy isn't there, then we have really no one. No offense to like Clifford, not like they're gonna see this or anything, but Fleming, but like they're just never there. I mean, honestly, I'd like to see Denmark in the game. I mean, we've heard so much about him in the preseason, how he's been producing in practices. I mean, he got a touchdown last week that Loxley hated, but I mean, honestly, he's got 1 touchdown. Is that like almost tying Fleming? So I mean,
I think it is tying.
Yeah, so like.
Has Liam Clifford been in the end zone this year?
Hold on, I'll look.
Done and through like one of the last games of the season.
I mean,
okay, touchdowns. Tyseer Denmark 1, Khalil Dinkins 2, Luke Reynolds 1, Katron 2, Julian. These are all receiving. Julian Fleming 1, Liam Clifford 1, Nick Singleton 4, Omari Evans 3, Trey Wallace 3, and the big guy 6.
Yeah, like exactly. Denmark's tied our 2 other wide receivers in the
starting
game.
Wide receivers.
Yeah. So like that just proves that our wide receivers once again have not been there this season. So I mean, may as well try anybody if they're on the field not doing anything and Wallace isn't playing, you may as well just put out whoever you got. See if they can make a play.
So Liam Clifford, when you're watching this, it's at Justin_Nelson.
4.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry. Okay. So the point I was going to make, I think, you think about, like I was on Twitter today, the 2016 Big Ten championship game came up, right? And they start with us being down 28-7, and then there's the touchdown to Blacknall right before the half, and then the touchdown to Blacknall right after the half, and all the stuff that came together for them to win that game. And like Saeed Blacknall did not do a lot outside of that game in his entire career, right? So people have stepped up in these situations. He did it. Who can do it this time? And I feel like this year is one where this team has the same kind of grit that, no, that's kind of a stupid word, but like the attitude that the 2016 team had, in that they don't roll over when the chips are down. They fight through everything, and they've managed to pull off 2 really big wins at USC and at Minnesota to prove that. The Ohio State game notwithstanding, because there were some very questionable play calls at the 3-yard line. Maybe not the first one. That was bad luck, the interception.
Yeah,
but
that's the thing. That one was just, I mean, Wallace needs to make a better attempt on that ball.
Yeah, but the one in the fourth quarter towards the end there. So, like, they were close. You chalk that one up to, like, maybe that's what they needed to revitalize and kind of feel the pain of losing. But, man, like, I don't care what the score is halfway through this game, even if they're down by 14 or 17 or something. I'm not going to count them out anymore. It's not like one of those games against Michigan several years ago, or 2018 kind of thing, where that they were just smoked. Like, this is not that kind of team. These guys will fight and have a chance at least.
Yeah, and I mean, like, they're doing this without a lot of key contributors too. KJ Winston.
Yeah.
If you count Abdul Carter was early in the season was changing positions and didn't look all that sharp. Like, this was the best defensive player on this team going into the season because you didn't really know what you're going to get out of Abdul Carter yet. Yeah. He hasn't played since the middle of the Bowling Green game. Andrew Rappelé was supposed to be Tyler Warren's main backup. You haven't seen him since the West Virginia game.
Khalil Dinkins has done a lot of good things, though. Yeah. Like he did, and obviously Luke Reynolds had a couple of plays. Well, had one big play.
I mean, Donko's been in and out, now out. Ford, who's been your number 4 defensive tackle, now out. And Elliott Washington, who's been a borderline starting cornerback, been out since the Purdue game. So I mean, they've done the stuff. They haven't lost, knock on wood, like a major piece. I think Winston does fall under that category, but you haven't lost, Drew Aller, Tyler Warren, and Bill Carter. But like Denai Dennis Sutton was ineffective for a few weeks dealing with what seemed to be like a groin type injury. So like they've dealt with some things. It's not been like in years past where they've been relatively healthy and gotten through it. They've had to overcome some stuff this year. So I think, that's a testament to them too. It's not been as perfect as years past, and they've still kind of gotten over those things.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. I don't have much to say with that, but
yeah, I figured. That was just going on a tangent there. So obviously Oregon number 1, only team not lose this season. Pretty good team on both sides of the ball, but maybe 2016 is replaying itself. Got the same person elected president. Team that wears blue won the World Series in 2026 in the Cubs. Team that wears blue, the Dodgers, won the World Series this year.
National League team that wears blue too.
Yeah, National League team that wears blue. I'm trying to think.
Franklin's
Those were the only 2 I could come up with when I was thinking about this. I was thinking about this beforehand. Those were the only 2 things I could come up with. But Penn State replaced all its coordinators before the season.
Is that true? That happened?
Yeah, that happened before 2016. I'm just saying, there's some things there. Hey,
Franklin's 1-0 in conference championships. All I gotta say.
Yeah.
What's hilarious about that too, because I don't remember 2014 or 2015, but like 2016, he beat Ohio State. They beat Wisconsin. They were top 10, right? Top 7-ish.
They were like 6, I think.
Yeah. So like there was no real the Franklin can't beat anybody narrative didn't exist back then, right? He was like a kind of a giant killer.
That started in like 2019.
Yeah, right. So like I don't know. I mean, shit can happen, and I don't know if they feel it. I feel it. I think people are starting to believe in this a little bit, and it's awesome. And I think they're going to do it. As much as I don't want to get my hopes up.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I got us winning. I don't know why. I had us going 11-1 this season with the loss to Ohio State. That was correct. Don't know how. Was not expecting to make it here, but we're here. Happy to be here, and hopefully we can go out there and just try to prove something. I mean, got nothing to lose. That's how we should be playing. Just do whatever you got to do. Show the world, and then if we lose, we lose. Just keep it close. That's all I care about. I mean, I'm going to it, so it better be a close game, unless we're killing. So,
yeah, that's honestly why I like Penn State in this game, though, is because I do feel like all the pressure is on Oregon to keep this undefeated record, to win the Big Ten, to stay as the 1 seed, to get the bye. Penn State's just kind of here. Like, we thought that we were gonna beat Maryland and then sit here for 3 weeks and wait to find out who was coming into Beaver Stadium at the end of December. That's no longer the case. And I think the fact that Penn State's just kind of here playing along, that makes them dangerous. Dangerous teams are teams that don't really understand the moment, and I think Penn State hasn't had as much time to process this. They started processing it after Loxley, cried on the field after the game. That's when it started to sink in for them. For Oregon, they clinched this like 2 weeks ago. This is all they've been thinking about for almost a month now. Like, Penn State is just a snap of the finger, and it's like it's time to go. And I think that kind of works in your favor when you don't have time to sit there and actually think about the gravity of a moment. I think that's what makes them dangerous, and honestly think that's why I'm leaning with Penn State this week.
The one thing though, you would expect maybe that they were looking ahead to this or something, Oregon, but they did smoke Washington, right? I'm sure they're a fairly disciplined team. I do tend to agree that maybe Penn State comes out and plays a little more loosely than them, but I don't think Penn State's not going to blow them out, right? They're not going to catch them by surprise or anything like that.
That'd be sick though.
I mean, look, let's be honest. Penn State really hasn't blown anyone out this season anyway. Now look, they didn't blow them out on the scoreboard, but like the UCLA game, Booger said they struggled, whatever.
They struggled. Big
yeah, it was 27-3. The Illinois game was just 21-7. That's 21. ranked Illinois, by the way. Like they didn't really dominate teams on the scoreboard, but you never felt uncomfortable for the most part of those games.
Yeah.
And even West Virginia for the majority of that game until maybe the end when Singleton broke that long run after the rain delay. But like they haven't blown anyone out, so I'm not expecting them to. But I think they've just done a good job of controlling enough of what they need to control within the game to win the game.
Yeah.
In terms of clock and yardage and field position.
Yeah, but I guess that's what I mean as much as anything. Like that, like you said, the Illinois game, West Virginia game. Yeah, they didn't kill them on the scoreboard, but I was never nervous in any of those games, right? Like you don't feel like they were going to lose those games.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even Minnesota to some extent didn't. I don't know. It didn't have the ominous feel of like a 2018 Michigan State or something like that.
Yeah, and we talked about this. I think if that extra point doesn't get blocked, like totally different feel. Like they started that game pretty bad, but once it should have been 17-17, I would have felt fine. It's just that whole 3-point swing made things a little more weird than it needed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Nelly, be safe out there.
Yeah.
It'll be fun. It'll be fun.
So Nelly, the last time you went on a trip to the Midwest for Penn State was the tournament game, right?
Yeah, Iowa, 14 hours.
Yeah. So
we won.
You've been a good luck charm. Yeah.
You went to the A&M game, I guess, or what?
Yeah, A&M. No. That was the best game. That was sick.
You didn't stick around. You didn't stay for the UT game, or?
No, dude, I wanted to, but it was just too much money to buy another night at the hotel and buy tickets.
Okay, well, good.
Wait, that game was sick too, even though we lost. That was such a good game.
Well, my dread in the backcourt.
Yeah,
but I'm not going to get into that.
Yeah,
if we start ranting about that, that's a problem.
But they're like 33rd in net or something. Clemson's 18th, so they lost to a very good team, Nelly. Clemson's not bad.
Oh, no, they're fine. They're fine. Just can't have 20 turnovers, but it's fine. It's fine.
They played terribly and still have a decent chance at it.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Nelly. Well, you go be the good luck charm again. And
27-24, Penn State.
All right. We'll talk at some point. I don't even know when we're going to talk. But we'll be back before the next game. How about that?
Okay.